I'm going to pronounce the words for you so I know that you know how to say them. Gaudy, vicarious, prosaic, imminent, icon, somber, ominous, latent, disheveled, inclement, quarry, audacious, vernacular, vivacious, and baffling. Here's one more clue. It might be easier for you to remember the words if you take your cards and you arrange them in some way that seems logical for you. For example, you can group them by parts of speech, you can group them alphabetically, you can group them by sound, anything that seems logical to you, maybe by length, put the longer words together, put the shorter words together, so that there's some pattern in your mind that helps make it easier for you to remember the words. Now, we've mentioned using a dictionary and a thesaurus a great deal in this program. I know that looking up words is a nuisance. Well, so is exercise, but they both work really well. And now, actually, you don't have a whole lot of excuses because you can look up the words online, you can look up the words in a book, they have little pocket programs that you can use. But the dictionary really is your best friend when it comes to knowing how to pronounce a word, how to use the word's origin, the word's part of speech, synonyms and antonyms for the word. And the act of looking it up, just looking up the word, helps you remember it because you've used it to look it up. There are many different kinds of dictionaries. For example, we have abridged and unabridged. An abridged dictionary is a shortened dictionary. An unabridged dictionary is the complete dictionary. You may never have seen an unabridged dictionary. It looks like a set of encyclopedias because an unabridged dictionary has many, many words. Many of them have all the words that we use. The abridged dictionaries are the ones that you find on your computer programs. They're the ones that you find in your little pocket dictionaries or in your pocket computer programs. And those are perfectly fine for everyday use. We also have specialized dictionaries. We have dictionaries of foreign phrases. We have dictionaries of regional phrases because in different parts of the country we use different words. For example, in some parts of the country we refer to that fizzy drink as soda, but in other parts of the country it's called pop. For example, in some parts of the country, those long sandwiches that are prepared on big, thick rolls are called heroes. In other parts, they're called hoagies. In other parts, they're called subs. In other parts, they're called grinders. So you may not be familiar with these regionalisms. Now, you're not going to use these in your writing because remember, we said you're going to stay away from slang and things like that. But you do want to know those terms because you want to understand if somebody says, I want a grinder and a pop, and you're used to saying, I want a soda and a hero, what it is the person is talking about. So you might want to consult a dictionary of regional English for those words and phrases. And you'll find there are dictionaries on many, many, many different types of words. There are dictionaries on words that have entered English from other languages. There are even pretend dictionaries. There's a dictionary of Klingonisms from Star Trek. Now, you're not going to consult that dictionary, but be aware that you can find a dictionary for just about any word that you want. In addition, we have a thesaurus. Now, a thesaurus is a collection of synonyms and antonyms. You can get that in a book or you can get that online. And as we mentioned earlier, that's in your program already, most likely. You use a thesaurus by looking up the word and you'll find the list of synonyms and you'll find the list of antonyms. But as I've said before, it's worth saying again, don't just look in the thesaurus or push the button and pick the longest word or the fanciest sounding word. Make sure that that word means exactly what you need it to mean. Because synonym can mean the same or almost the same. And as Mark Twain said, the difference between the word and its first cousin can be the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. A big difference. In addition, every single word in English has a denotation. A denotation starts with D, is its dictionary meaning. That's the word. When you look it up, you find exactly what the meaning is. You may find one meaning, you may find multiple meanings. So a word can have one denotation, two denotations, three, and so on. They are listed in order from most common, that's number one, to least common. However, some words also have a connotation. A connotation is the word's unstated meaning. It's its emotional overtones. It's what we think of when we hear the word. And the connotation can be negative or it can be positive. This is especially difficult for people whose native language is not English, because if they don't understand the word has a connotation, they may use it inappropriately in context. Also, the connotations may change, because as the word is used differently, it gets different connotations. Knowing a difference in connotation helps you get exactly the meaning that you need, and also helps you avoid being embarrassed. And you want to make sure that you use the word correctly. Here are some examples. The word thin. Synonyms include lean, slender, trim, skinny, lanky, scrawny, gaunt, emaciated, frail, skeletal, bony, underweight, malnourished, and anorexic. Thin may or may not have a connotation depending on who you talk to, but you know that slender has a positive connotation. When you hear the word slender, you think that's a good thing. But when you hear the words emaciated, frail, skeletal, bony, malnourished, they all have negative connotations. You don't want to say to somebody, boy, you are really emaciated. Yes, it means thin, but it means they are so thin that they are almost skeletal. Here's the opposite. Take the word fat. Hearty, robust, curvy, curvaceous. They all have positive connotations. If somebody says he's hearty looking, that's a good thing. But you don't want to be called chunky, heavy, overweight, or obese. They have negative connotations. So be aware that a synonym and an antonym may be neutral, but it may also be positive or negative. So now what I would like you to do is to pause the program and determine the connotation of each word in each pair. Put a plus for a positive connotation and a dash, a negative sign, for a negative one. Then come back. Now, I'm sure what you figured out is in each pair, the denotations, the dictionary meanings, are virtually identical, but the connotations are worlds apart. A know-it-all is a negative connotation. It implies someone who's a blowhard, someone who is always sharing knowledge that nobody particularly wants to know. So that's got a negative sign. But a sage also means a very wise person, but that has a positive connotation. We think of a wise person who is a good teacher and someone we want to go to. Thrifty and cheap both mean someone who is careful with their money, but thrifty is positive. Cheap is negative. Vain and confident, similar or identical denotations, but opposite connotations. To be vain is negative. To be confident is positive. You'd much rather be described as confident than vain. Bold and reckless. Someone who is bold goes out there, has got spirit, has got spunk. We think, an explorer, Eric the Red, positive. Someone who's reckless, we think someone is a daredevil. We think someone is careless. Completely negative. If you're steadfast, That means that you have the faith of your convictions. You take a stand and you don't deviate from it because you know you're right. It's a positive thing. But obstinate is the opposite. It means you dig your heels in and you get stubborn and you get petulant. Simplistic and uncomplicated are the same. Something simplistic is negative. Something uncomplicated is positive because it implies that it's easy. Now, as I said earlier, the denotations and the connotations of a word can change over time. For example, take terrific and awesome. They used to have negative, almost fearful connotations. Awesome meant full of awe, and that was a fearful thing. You would be afraid. Now, both of those words have highly positive connotations. It's terrific means it's great. It's awesome means it's great. Whereas many years ago, those were negative words. So as we can tell, a word's connotation can change. And words that have virtually identical denotations, dictionary meanings, can have wildly opposite connotations. So what this means is that you've got to look up the words in a dictionary to make sure that you're getting exactly the connotation as well as the denotation that you need. Now, another great way to learn words is to take them apart. I did that earlier when I took apart a word I showed you, omni and potent. Omni, all, potent is powerful. Many, many, many words can be taken apart into their affixes, their roots, their suffixes, and their prefixes. Let's take a look at the base form of the word. That's the root of a word. What's really nice about this is if you learn just a couple of roots, you find that you learn many, many words. As I had showed you with locu, elocution, loquacious, you learn locu, suddenly I've got two words out of one root. Now, some roots can also function as words. For example, graph is a root, but it's also a word. Term is a root, but it's also a word. Pater is a root, it's a word. So you can use them as words, or you can use them to build words. Others, as we said, you have to build with. So, for example, prim, P-R-I-M, you have to build on. You have to add, let's say, al, add the suffix. You get primal, which means first. Well, as you probably know, English has words from many other languages. Many of our words come from ancient Greece. And so by learning some Greek roots, you learn a lot of English words. Here are a couple of Greek roots that are especially useful. The first one is andr, A-N-D-R. It means man. For example, androgen, which is the male hormone. So we've combined A-N-D-R with O-G-E-N to form that word. Arch, which means first. We have the archbishop. He is the first or the highest bishop. Gen, which means race or birth, as in genetic, means pertaining to genes. Geo means earth, as in geography, mapping the earth. Helio means sun, as in heliocentric, the sun at the center of our solar system. Meter is measure, and altimeter is a device that measures altitude. Polit, P-O-L-I-T, citizen. Cosmopolitan means worldly. Thermo, heat. Thermostat is a device for regulating temperature. Zoo means animal. Zoology is the study of animals. Now, before we go on, these roots are tremendously useful, but not in 100% of the cases, because we've taken roots from other languages that are very, very similar. So, for example, we have gen, which as a Greek root means race or birth.